Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. When I was much younger, a younger father, we always went to the mountains most of the time with our kids. And it was fun, but it's work. You know, when you're going on a vacation or maybe camping, it's labor intensive. It bears no semblance to relaxation for me. As I've gotten a little bit less tread on the tires, I love the beach now. I love going. And you know, for me, one of the things I love is to go to a particular barrier island that I've gone to for many, many years now. And to be able to sit there, and there's nothing else there. There's houses, maybe a couple of restaurants. No big restaurants, certainly no chains. But I can just relax and forget. Today, we're going to talk about a similar island, not too far away from the one that I enjoy going to. And it sits just off of the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I'm familiar with it. The name of the island is Horn Island. And something has occurred there that has caught the attention of the nation. What that is? It's the death of a young man. Today on Body Bags, we're going to explore the death and what we know so far of Nolan Wells. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Dave, you know my affinity for the beach now. I used to curse it because I couldn't stand the sand in my shoes, but as I've gotten older, I welcome that sand in my shoes, and I welcome just listening to the waves, brother, with my shades on.
I love it.
I do too.
That's my happy place is the ocean.
Yeah,
I like sitting, like I've lived at the coast a lot in my life, but I like when you go to the beach on vacation and you're sitting there, hopefully overlooking the ocean. I like having that view. I don't mind paying extra for it so that I'm right there watching the waves. So that because I get up early, everybody else would get up late, and I would get up early, take my coffee, and sit out on the patio in my chair and just listen to music, read a book, and watch the waves. Watch the dolphins around 6:45. You know, the whole nine. That's my happy place.
I'm a Pelicans fan. I love watching them. They're prehistoric, and I love when they fly in formation real low over the water.
Yeah.
If I could be any bird in the world, it would be a pelican at the beach.
Okay.
But you know something, I had this discussion with you at one point in time, and you know I marvel at your career anyway. And I'd actually mentioned to you at one point in time, I always thought it'd be a really cool gig to work at a radio station that is the classic rock and roll beach state. You know the one I'm talking about? You're always searching for it when you get, or used to. It's a different world now. You're looking for that good time rock and roll just to listen to it at the beach.
Yeah.
You said that it's not necessarily a desirable gig, but it just sounds like it's really cool to me now.
Here's the thing, okay? And this goes back, those of you that are under probably 35 do not have the same affinity we have for radio. It was a different animal. Radio used to actually be an entertainment thing where there were actual personalities on the air and stuff. And being at the beach, okay, you know how you go to the beach for vacation and you think, man, if I was here, I'd open up a taco stand right here and I'd be happy the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but why aren't you finding that where you live normally? Do you have a taco stand there because people eat tacos where you live? The reason is because it's not a whole lot of fun. And when you're working at the beach, okay, yes, you live there, but geographically speaking, friends, you work a full-time job, all right? You're not on vacation, and you get where I'm headed. There's two types of people in radio. I'm going to stay with just radio for a minute.
Yeah.
There are the burnouts who are going to the beach just because they're done with the sales manager and they just want to have a gig where they can be done by 2:00 and at their favorite bar by 2:30. Yeah. That's what they're after at the beach. And then you have those who are escaping. I worked at
Okay.
dude, let me very quickly, and my buddy Rusty's going to laugh at this.
Yeah.
We worked at a radio station that I will not name, but we had very expensive CD players. It was right there on the coast, okay? Right there on the coast. I will not tell you what state, but this was that station that everybody you would want to be at. Top 40 station, and we had these new Denon CD players. Back in the day, these were about $1,200 that you used in broadcast radio, okay? One of them came up missing. Now, in most stations, you have a backup, right? You have two that are in, and then you have a backup. And so a note went out. Hey, we're missing this. Did somebody borrow it? The next note, hey, if you borrowed this for some reason, bring it back. Nobody answered. So after a week, it was, okay, Monday morning, on Friday afternoon, Monday morning, Sheriff's Department is going to be here. And we're finding out who stole this felony. Okay, it's a felony. It's over $1,200 for the CD. Anyway, nobody copped to it, man. So sure enough, we bring a detective in. He sits down with all the staff members. We had 3 escaped convicts and a girl that was AWOL from the Marines that were on staff working under assumed names.
Oh, my Lord.
I'm not kidding. When we got done that day, there was me, Rusty, and the morning guy. That was it. The rest of the staff was in jail. And so that's what you have. There you go. Anyway, but the long story short is we're talking about Nolan Wells, and this is not a funny story. Nolan Wells went with some friends to the 4th of July.
Getting vacation, a boat, man. That's what we're talking about,
out,
brother.
Going out 10 miles to a barrier island, Horn Island, off the coast of Mississippi, and you're just going to have fun with your friends. Going to have a few adult beverages. Most of you are underage, so it's illegal, but that's what's going on. And everybody was out there doing just that. There are pictures from this day. And by the way, eyewitness accounts, very crowded at Horn Island that day. Now, Joe,
can I interject here real quick?
Please.
With these barrier islands like this, one of the things that people will do, in case you've never been, and the Gulf has quite a few barrier islands, all right, all along the rim of it. One of the things that will be done is if you have a boat that is robust enough and protective enough to get out there. We're talking about 10 miles, Dave. It's a poke, all right? You can't, I guess you could probably see Horn Island from the shore, from the Gulf Shores area, that sort of thing, and you could let out from there. However, that's going to be on a clear day, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to have something that's going to be reliable, that's going to be robust enough, the motors and all that, to get you out there. You're going to fight against the surf and all that. Anyway, it's very common practice to get out there and then beach your boat. That's what you do. And you bring everything with you. It's not like you would I think that Horn Island in general, first off, it's kind of a protected area in the sense that there's wildlife there.
Yeah.
You have birds, all these sorts of things. And it has a park status. So, people are watching it for that purpose. But when kids go out there, or, anybody that can make it out there, you bring everything with you. There are no stores. You better be gassed up when you
there's
leave.
No electricity, no gas.
You got to get back. And when the sun starts to go down, brother, all right,
oh, man.
Which in summertime, that would probably be 8-ish or so, and you're pushing the limit there if you wait till that late to get back in. And timing is a big thing in this case, but when you go out there, you have to be completely self-sufficient. And, you want to go and enjoy yourself, lay out on the beach, just like, your vacation anywhere else. Only the trouble is you got to get back to civilization or you're going to be bumping around in the dark in the open ocean.
With nothing. So, and which is why this particular case, friends, really sticks out because boaters, people who go to areas like this, and all of the people who are doing it, they're out there in a group, okay? Nolan Wells was not just in a boat with 4 friends, 5 friends that went out by themselves that day. There was a caravan of boats. They were following one another out there, and they arrived at the same time. They left just before 10 a.m., like 9:56 in the morning. Now, all of this is documented with GPS. All the boats are out. Okay, you know how if some of your friends drive a clunker on the road and they barely make it to work or school or whatever, and other friends, they have a much better car that has to have liability and collision. All right, that doesn't really happen with boats here. All these boats are nice, probably cost more than my car. Yeah. And it's usually not the kid driving it who's in his late teens. It's probably mom and dad's, grandma, grandpa, okay? So the boats are nice. They've all got GPS. And by the way, your phones and things like that all function to a certain degree in terms of tracking. They follow each other out there, and I'm going to go right off my list here. Boat departs a private dock in the Ocean Springs area for Horn Island at 10:56 a.m. GPS data records the departure. 11:14 a.m. Boats arrive at Horn Island. I put plural on that because, like I said, there was a caravan of boats.
Right.
Horn Island that day was covered up, wall-to-wall people. And we're not talking 50. Hundreds, maybe 1,000 people on Horn Island, 4th of July day. 11:15 till 3 o'clock. This is a set time here. Nolan Wells spends that time on Horn Island with friends. And there's photos, there's videos, there's a lot of eyewitnesses that can put him on the island between 11 and 3. So there's not any battle about this. Here's the catch. One of the things Joe mentioned a minute ago is when you go out to a place like Horn Island, you have to carry everything you need with you. And you have to have everything you need to make it back to shore. This is not something people goof around about. Pretty much, if you're raised around the ocean or you spend any time on the water, there are certain respectful things you do. You do not leave somebody behind on an island that has no power or water or any kind of way to survive. You just don't do it. You stick together. It's like the buddy system in the ocean or in a pool. If you truly care about the people you're with, you do not go alone. You have somebody watching your back. And so going to an island like this, you have to have a plan to get back home, meaning whoever brung you, okay? You stay with that person. That's who you ride home with. Only on rare occasions would you go with one person and come back with another. Maybe in a different boat in the same caravan, that would happen, but you're not going to be out there without a plan. And according to what we're led to believe here, is that Nolan met a girl named Katie, and they had no background together, but that afternoon, as everybody was getting ready to head back to shore, Nolan wouldn't go. He wanted to stay with his girl Katie that he just met. We'll get into this in a minute, but this is the story that we have to follow right now. So Nolan is on the island with Katie, and his friends, who all left together, return back to shore. The last time Nolan is publicly seen, meaning people admitting to seeing him, was 3 o'clock that afternoon. At 4 o'clock, right around there, this is really important. A private marine towing company gets a phone call from the boat that Nolan Wells rode in to Horn Island. And they say, our bilge pump stopped working, we're taking on water, we're sinking, we need a tow. The call is crystal clear, friends. We need help. And everybody is on board. So they tell the operator, they ask, is everybody safe? I mean, you've got a sinking boat, right? You're out in the ocean 10 miles out. Are you safe? Is everybody okay? The caller says yes. We were told different things about this, but here's the truth of the matter. Within a matter of minutes, the tow company calls a local captain closer to the area and explains the situation. We've got a boat, bilge pump stopped working, they're taking on water, they need a tow, can you help? Captain says, yep, headed out that way, no worries. Before he can get there, the caller from Horn Island calls back and says, hey, we don't need a local guy out here helped us, don't need a tow. Okay? We don't know who that person is that allegedly helped, but the call for a tow was called off, Joe. Now, at first, we were led to believe they were towed 3 miles, and then the boat miraculously healed itself, and they drove on back to the shore. That's not what happened. They were never towed, according to what we know now. But the boat arrives back in Fort Bayou Beach at 5:52 p.m. So 4 o'clock, we're taking on water, need a tow. 4:31, GPS records show the boat departs Horn Island without Nolan. That timestamp is important because 4:31 they leave, 5:52 the boat reaches Fort Bayou. The GPS documents the route after leaving the island. 6:06 p.m., the boat returns to its original dock. Now, do you remember how long it took for them to get out there, Joe?
No.
They left at 9:56, arrived on Horn Island at 11:14.
Yeah.
So
just over
18
an hour.
Minutes?
Yeah.
Hour and 14 minutes, or hour and 18 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I was looking at it wrong. I was thinking it took much
no,
longer.
and that would match up 10 miles over that type of water. Yeah.
Okay, so that's about right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so now they made it back. Now, at 7:19 p.m., the boat travels to Fort Bayou Boat Launch. GPS shows it being transported over land on a trailer, apparently. I mean, they don't have wheels on boats anymore, or ever. And it goes to the owner's residence in Biloxi, Mississippi. That's what we know about the boat that day, going to Horn Island, leaving at 9:56, arriving back a little after 6. Now, Nolan left with them at 9:56. He was last seen on Horn Island at 3 o'clock and never made it back with them, Joe. That's the story we were told. Now, if you arrived back at dock without somebody you left with, what would you do? Would you call around and ask a few people you saw out there, hey, man, who brought Nolan back? Anything? I mean, would somebody be... You're responsible. You're the captain of the boat. Isn't it your job to make sure everybody gets back safe?
Yeah, it is. You've taken on that responsibility and, dare I say, liability as well, because you're master and commander at that point in time of that craft, and you are directly responsible for their welfare if you're operating that vessel. Yeah, and I think that's the way any right-thinking investigative agency would look at this.
Let me ask you something, Joe.
Yeah, sure.
If I got your son, Noah, and I said, hey, Joe, I'm going to grab Noah up in Huntsville. We're going to head to Nashville for the day. Yeah. And, we'll be back around 7, 8 o'clock tonight. And I get back, we do all that. And you only talk to you during the day. Yeah, we're having fun in Nashville. And I get back home and call you, or you call me. Hey, Dave, where's Noah? I haven't talked to him. I don't know, man. We left him in Nashville. Would that make any sense to you?
No, absolutely not. And
yeah, I just left him in Nashville. And you know what? They got food and electricity there.
Yeah, they do. There's some place where you can get shelter. There's some place where you can at least take care of yourself. But, when you're on an isolated wildlife refuge, essentially, there ain't nothing there. Well, except for pelicans, perhaps, that I love so much. But they're not going to do you much good in this case, now, are they?
No.
You're simply left behind. With night approaching, the question is not necessarily what would the victim have done, but what would his friends have done? Brother Dave, I think one of the big questions, and I'm glad, you made that mention of you and Noah making a trip up to Nashville, because I got to tell you, as a father, even though he's my adult son, we talk pretty regularly, as you well know.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have questions, like, where's my kid? Where's my son? I'd like to know. So. And I think that's one of the big questions here. How did this all kick off relative to drawing the attention of the ones that love him?
We spent a lot of time covering this on Nancy Grace over the last week. And Joe, I will tell you, the story has evolved from what we were told at the beginning and what we know now. Here's what we know now. After the group made it back from Horn Island without Nolan, they arrive, 7 o'clock. Nobody picks up the phone and starts calling around that we're aware of. It wasn't until after 11 o'clock at night. And this is the shocking part of this. We've covered this because you keep thinking this can't be it. It's after 11 o'clock at night when Nolan's buddy Warren picks up the phone and calls Nolan's mom and says, hey, Nolan didn't ride back with us and we can't find him. Now, Joe, just so you know, these young people, they're all college age, okay?
Yeah.
And their parents their friend group extends to parents, meaning the parents know the young people and the people that are the kids they're hanging around. And so Nolan's mom picks up the phone because she knows two other young men who were on the same boat with Nolan. And she picks up the phone and calls their house. Hey, when did you last see Nolan? This is Warren, the friend of Nolan, calling Nolan's mom after 11 o'clock at night, Joe. Warren or somebody calls the Coast Guard, but they don't make a missing persons report at that time. It's Nolan's mom who starts calling around. Nolan, mom, then they do the tracking thing because, you got Life 360 that tracks the phone, and then Snapchat shows when you were doing videos. And by the way, Nolan was one of these people who was always doing videos and pictures and uploading to Snapchat. Very common for him. So when Warren calls Nolan's mom, and says, hey, he didn't come back with us, she immediately hits Life 360 and finds where his phone is, and she goes to that location, and lo and behold, here are the young people that were with Nolan on the boat. It's here on land. It's not on Horn Island. And hey, who's got his phone? Nolan's mom stands there for 15 minutes while these young people who on a Friday or on 4th of July at night, 11 o'clock or so, are watching television, so they say. It takes them about 15 minutes of mom waiting on the front porch before they show up with his phone. And the first thing she does, Joe, is she looks at it because she knows Snapchat. That'll show location. It also shows everything he did that day, His phone was wiped clean for 4th of July, Joe. There was nothing for 4th of July, picture-wise. Nothing. Nothing, Joe. And that's a problem for everybody that knows Nolan. So we have no Nolan. We have his phone with friends who, again, came back without him. So mom then calls and reports him missing. So the reporting him missing happens between 11 o'clock on the 4th of July. The official report is made just after midnight on July 5th. The reason those times are important is because when you're looking at a day, you'd say he went missing midday on the 4th of July, but nobody reported missing till the next day. No, mom had him reported missing within 45 minutes of finding out he didn't come home with the guys he left with. So that is where you start on the. But Joe, if you came back and realized that your guy didn't make it back, wouldn't you be doing something to try to find him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't you be on the phone? Wouldn't you be saying, hey, man, I'm talking like not at 7, 8, 9. I'm talking at 8 o'clock at night after you've called everybody you saw on Horn Island that day. If you don't know where Nolan is, you're on the phone to his parents and back out there. Searchlights or something, but none of that happened.
Yeah, and I've got questions about how people define friendship and loyalty, too. Just at a basic level. I don't care what your relationship is like. If there's been some kind of dust up or something like that, you're not talking about, you're down to the local Burger King and you had a disagreement in the parking lot and they rode there with you and you drove off. You're talking about a very isolated area, just about as isolated as you can get in our sense here. Yeah. In the American South, going out into the Gulf and going 10 miles offshore to an island and then leaving this individual alone. And even, okay, let me throw this out to you, okay? Let's just say you got Nolan who, and I don't know if this is the case, I'm just throwing this out there. Let's just say he's stomping his feet. He's saying, I am not leaving. I am not getting on that boat. I'm staying right here. Right. Guess what my first phone call is going to be? Yep. When I get back, or maybe even when I'm in transit, as soon as I have service on my phone, I'm calling people to say, look, he was with us. He's refused to get on the boat. I can't make him get onto the boat, but I don't want to leave him out there. So that's where time is a factor here. And again, let's address it. This is the reality of it. It's about appearance. Because things can be taken certainly the wrong way. What was your purpose behind just abandonment? Why would you do that? Without at least alerting some, and maybe at this point, maybe somebody else has been contacted. To the best of our knowledge right now, we don't have that information that anyone else was contacted, that there was some kind of wide-ranging search that was going on immediately in the wake of this. That's a problem. That's a major problem.
You pointed out something a little while ago about the time of day, sunlight and what have you. And when the group returned back to shore, 6 o'clock. You still got a couple hours of daylight.
Oh, yeah.
And as you mentioned, you would, if he was, you'd be calling his parents, hey, we could not get him to come with us. He's had too much to drink and he just refuses to get on the boat. So we came back because we got people waiting on us, but we need you to know, you make arrangements right away, anything. And you could even let's just say they were having problems with the boat at 4:30 in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. The boat was fine to get them all the way back to shore, Joe. I'm just saying something really reeks. They should have been on the phone right away. It should have still been daylight when the search or not even the search, when somebody was back on Horn Island finding out where did Nolan go. Because surely somebody would have brought him back but he didn't. He never made it home. Now, they start the search, and the part about this that gets really frustrating is, again, we just don't know certain things that took place. But we do know that Nolan's body was found on July the 6th. Okay, so you've got July the 4th, late afternoon. He's apparently left on Horn Island.
Yep.
Nobody looks for him until after midnight. And after no sign of him, they find him on the 6th. So, Joe, the only thing we have left are stories told by those who were on the island who were drinking, and the body of an 18-year-old who was going to be playing football, wide receiver, at Southwest Mississippi Community College.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping you can tell me what his body says now that we've had 2 autopsies, because, of course, as this broke, Ben Crump, Al Sharpton, and others immediately got involved because I guess we haven't mentioned this yet because I don't think it has a bearing on the case, but it does now because Nolan Wells is an African-American young man and the people he was with were white.
Yeah. And, we have to look at this from a scientific perspective relative to what would the findings be after this period of time. And when I say period of time, people think, well, you're only talking about, no, I'm talking about a Gulf island in the heat of the summer. Things change. And also you're talking about tidal flow because, his body, from what we understand, was found adjacent to the shore, right? So at any moment in time, I think my big question is, how was he missed on the 5th? Okay, because if you've got a search that's underway, how do you go through the entire day of the 5th and you don't find him at that point in time? That's a big question I want to answer. I want to see the timeline. Yeah.
He was found right where he was last seen.
Yeah. And
now, if you're looking for somebody, isn't that where you start the search?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
We know this. Yeah.
And so that's very curious as well. Why did that piece of it take so long? And I think that will be revealed to us eventually relative to how people went out. We know our friends at the Cajun Navy, were down there. And
they spotted him from the sky.
Yeah, they did. And I've seen those images, and very clearly, it's human remains.
Interesting that there was a misconception or something was misstated on the air on the Nancy Grace show about whether or not Nolan Wells had all of his clothes on, because the last known photos and last known witness statements of him, he was wearing shorts like everybody, but not wearing a shirt. And when I was on the show as we were talking about this, and it was reported that Nolan Wells was found fully clothed, Joe, and the guy with the Cajun Navy said, yeah, it looked like he was fully clothed from a distance. But when you got up close, and you got to remember, when you're looking at something down in the water with sand all around, you got a lot of refraction going on. You've got to, but as you got closer, and you can see this in the picture, you digitally go in and you can tell, he was not wearing a shirt. He was only he was dressed exactly as he was last seen. Yeah. So he was not fully clothed. That was a misreporting. Yeah. Happens.
It does. And again, because of misreporting, one of the issues here is that's that's an investigative data point. And so now this is, kind of swirling about relative to the issue of abandonment. Okay. And then you have this issue of the clothing, and the entire time the temperature in the room is going up nationally. Okay. Ugh. And that's because of the conversation that's being had. And I think that there should be a conversation being had, Dave. But the problem is that when you begin to put other elements into the equation, it further, amplifies, aggravates, however you want to frame it, the discussion you're going to have. So from our perspective, from the body bag's perspective, what are we looking at relative to human remains? Well, those human remains would have had to have been collected. Now, just so everybody knows, and I love to talk about coroners and medical examiners. Mississippi is a state that has county coroners. All right, so the county, their jurisdiction extends out that far. Okay, they would either out that far or to the point where the body is brought into port. Yep.
Really? Okay, so Horn Island, that would be the county,
right? Either one of two things happens. Either if it is state controlled, that means that there's going to be a county that is responsible for it. Okay,
I'll be dogged. If
it's a federal area and it's outside of, say, state boundaries, but would remain within U.S. federal waters, that's a federal issue. Sometimes it's the jurisdiction is dictated, and this happened to us a lot in New Orleans. I work cases coming up on boats out of South America where homicides have been committed on the boat. They put into port in my jurisdiction, and it became mine. So you can have that instance, but at any rate, regardless of the jurisdictional issue about the coroners, what's going to happen is that county coroner is not going to do the autopsy. That's going to be the state medical examiner, which facilitates autopsies for the coroners in Mississippi. And, people give Mississippi a lot of flack. They shouldn't, particularly in the area when it comes to medical legal death investigation, because they train their coroners pretty well to have a coroner system. They're always doing conferencing, they're educating their coroners, this sort of thing, and then they have a forensic pathologist that handles the state medical examiner. Now, there have been problems in the past, I acknowledge all that, but we're talking about the case right now.
Right.
So this case involving Nolan Wells would have been taken to the state medical examiner. They would have done the initial examination. Now, if I am handling a case that is let's just say that it's a waterborne case. You're on an island, you're surrounded by water, you don't know what the status of the body is. First thing I'm going to be looking for, right out of the box, is I want to know if there has been any kind of ingestion of water. All right. Now, when I say taking on water and ingestion of water, did you know that we have drowning victims, we actually find water in the stomach as well. It's not just simply in the airway, down into the lungs. There are certain areas that we look for that are indicative of drowning. So when you approach this case, that's one of the things that has to be at the top of your list as the prosector on this case, to dig in, to try to determine, because you want to check it off, right? If you can look at it and say, okay, there's no evidence of drowning, I've ticked that box. Where does the other causal effect rest? And Dave, I got a major problem here in the sense that, as you mentioned, and rightly so just a moment ago, this kid is a collegiate football player. Have you seen the images of him? He looks like a Greek god, all right?
Yeah.
He is a strapping young man, very little fat on his body. He looks like he could run a marathon. I hear that he's a good swimmer, all these sorts of things. So I'm thinking this is probably not going to be a natural event. All right. He didn't just God called. All right. And he's gone. All right. You're not going to be able to sell that to me no matter how hard you try. Okay. So that means that our answers must rest elsewhere. And to this point, we still have yet to hear from the state medical examiner. Why? Well, because it's still under investigation. I didn't expect to hear from them, okay? Because at this point, we still don't have toxicology back. There is an ongoing investigation, which authorities have had freely admitted to. This is something that's being looked at. I think that you and I have laid out a case why it should be looked at,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
of
yeah.
all these inconsistencies
Yeah.
about accountability and all these things. I want to know. I think everybody in the country wants to know at this point in time. So we're going to break down not just one, but two autopsies. Dave, I got to tell you, when I heard that there was going to be a second examination, this is aside from the examination that took place with the Mississippi State medical examiner. When I heard that there would be a second one, an independent, I love that word, an independent examination, I was actually thrilled by that, because I got to tell you, when it comes to, if you're going to seek somebody out to do something like this, there are a lot of folks out there that purport to be one thing, and they're not, as far as experts go. Dr. Mitchell's the real deal. He's a board-certified forensic pathologist. He's the former chief medical examiner for DC. He's seen a thing or two, all right? So the fact that he is the person that is doing this examination, just from my perspective, the medical legal perspective, I'm putting aside everything else relative to this because it's none of my business. I felt very, very confident in who they chose.
All right. And what did he come up with?
Well, this is what he came up with. Obviously, what we're referring to here regarding, that's the big ask or the big question. When Crump got up and had his presser, he emphasized the idea that structures in the neck were missing. Okay. And I'd like to, just kind of lay it out and why they're missing. Dr. Mitchell even goes into this in his report where he states that this is a common practice, and I will concur with that assessment. It is. But these, the organs of the neck, and we're talking about the larynx, the trachea, the strap muscles probably that cover this area, which we look for hemorrhage in. You don't arbitrarily retain this stuff. Okay. It's like out of everything that you could retain, all right, you're going to say, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll retain the organs of the neck. They've done this with purpose because there's something there that they're either trying to do further analysis with at the state. Remember, they have an ongoing investigation, or they're retaining this from an evidentiary standpoint. And what that means is they want this to be used as a demonstrative tool. Now, I don't know what they have found. No one knows. As of this conversation you and I are having, no one knows what they found in Mississippi, but they have retained it. Now, I'm sure that if Dr. Mitchell had his way, he would love to have seen this specimen, but he can't. But, he goes into his report and he makes a statement, and I'm, kind of paraphrasing here. It's kind of a SOP, for this to happen. And he acknowledges that there is an ongoing investigation. But what I am thrilled about relative to not so much what is absent, I'm thrilled by the fact of the extent of this dissection that he did on Nolan. All right. Because Dave, I got to tell you, it rivals anything that we do. Let's just say that if we have a person that dies in custody, or you have somebody that is executed in a prison system. We've talked about this before, how
pretty in depth.
How extensive this autopsy is.
Right.
And I'm talking about, you're not just looking at the chest.
Right.
You're not just looking merely at the head. Dr. Mitchell actually did a posterior dissection. If you can imagine laying on your back, our friends out there, and having, I'm going to be very blunt here, having your back opened with a scalpel. That's what he did. Even the backs of the arms, the back, the upper chest, the posterior chest, down the spine, the buttocks. This is all in the report. Read it for yourself if you don't believe me. Down the backs of the legs. And what is he looking for? Well, he's looking for specific hemorrhage. He's looking for points of impact. All right. Guess what he found? Goose egg. He didn't find anything. This is Dr. Mitchell stating this in his report. He didn't see any areas of contusion posteriorly, with the exception of what he saw in the back of the head. Now, the caveat that Dr. Mitchell offers up in this particular case, Dave, is the idea that he acknowledges that Nolan's body is in a significant state of decomposition.
Right.
One of the problems with decomposition, and when you're looking for focal areas of hemorrhage or impact, lacerations, it can be masked by decomposition. And according to him and what I'm reading, it seems as though that this is marked decomposition. I think he even uses that term. So when you get to the back of the head, all of our friends out there, take your index finger and find the knot on the back of your head, all right? That's called the occiput. The occiput. It's a bony structure. It's part of the structure of the skull. Now go inferior or below that. That area in a band behind or inferior to the occiput, right there, that's where you're seeing this discoloration. And what was fascinating to me, and I don't know if he intended to do this or whatever the case might be, Dave, I got to tell you, I'm looking at the report right now that Crump's office made available that was generated by Dr. Mitchell. You know what's significant to me, brother? This area of discoloration that he annotates on here is actually demonstrated like a rectangle. And rectangle is not something that you associate with decomposition. Okay, rectangle implies that that's a point of impact or something happened. If we are to believe what those margins look like, just envision a rectangle. And again, I urge everybody out there, hear me right. If you go to Ben Crump's website, you can find the report there, I believe. I mean, I think that's how we got it. It's there. Look at it for yourself, okay? And you can see this. But he says, he qualifies this, Dave, by saying that he did a multi-layer dissection, and that means that you're literally taking the skin, okay, the top layer, the dermis, if you will. There's the epidermis, but the dermis, and literally peeling back gently the dermis. You look at that layer, then there's subcu fat. You're looking at the fat, you're peeling that back. Then you're going down to the muscle in that area. Though it's thin, you're looking in all of those areas. That's what a multi-layer dissection is. He went through all of this, and he is saying that decomposition is preventing him to fully assess this area for like what we would normally think about is like blunt force trauma, where you're getting focal areas of hemorrhage and all of that. So I found that quite fascinating as well relative to his findings. There have been some questions about the lungs. Okay. Now, I think that the lungs probably came with the body. All right. Now, he states that the organs of the neck are absent. Understand that when Nolan's body arrived in DC, people, I think that when we do autopsies and the organs, that they're still intact afterwards. They're not. They're mincemeat, and they're all placed into a bag. Just let's clear the air with that so everybody understands. The brain.
When you say placed in a bag, Joe, when you say placed in a bag, are you talking about each individual item is placed in a bag, or are they all put together in one big bag?
Negative. They're all placed together. So, well, don't fret, because one of the things that we're really keen to in anatomical pathology is being able to discern between different organ groups. Like, I can look at a section of lung, and if I have a section of liver, it's easily discernible for me. I can look at that and say, that's lung. I can look at that and say, that's liver, spleen, kidneys, heart's very distinctive. Brain, in particular, is very distinctive. So these organs are placed into a bag, and then either the bag itself is placed between the legs, or it's placed back into the chest and the breastplate is placed over it and the body is sewn back up and then it's transported. And sometimes funeral homes will literally incinerate the organs. They don't bury the organs many times with the body. I think families think that. And I'm talking about an autopsy body. Understand, this is an autopsy body, not Meemaw and Peepaw down at the funeral parlor that I'm talking about. I'm not saying they're taking the organs out of natural death cases. Everybody out there understand, everybody in the back understand that. That's not what Morgan is saying. What I'm saying is, with autopsy bodies, these organs are diced up and they're placed or sectioned. They're placed in a bag, the remnant. Now, out of each one of those sections that we do, we take tissue samples and they're put into a bucket. Okay? They're placed into a bucket. They're held there. They're fixed. That's when we do histology. You cut it in so you can look at it microscopically. And you have that forever and ever. Amen. Now, with the lungs, there's probably bits of the lungs in that bag, unless for some reason they merely retained the lungs because they thought it was a drowning case and they've got them intact. I've seen that happen. Maybe that did. But if you read down through Dr. Mitchell's report, he actually says that he is submitting, not they in Mississippi, he is submitting tissue samples for histology. So he's seen these organs, okay? And he doesn't go into great detail about them because they are so sectioned up at this point in time. He's merely taking samples. He's got a little bucket like this. It's full of what's called formalin, which is kind of like formaldehyde. It's different. It's something that we use in medicine and the laboratory sciences. He's placing it in there. Those are fixing right now. What does that mean? Each one of those bits of tissue is becoming very, very firm. Then you know what they're going to do with it? They're going to encase it in a block of wax, and they're going to cut it. They're going to cut these things, and it'll be placed onto a slide, and it'll actually be stained. And there's different stains that you can place onto samples like this that, how can I say, it enhances certain features of tissue that you're looking for, okay? The biggest question, I think that, I hate to speak for you, brother, but I know that you have a question about it. I have a question. Was there a drowning? Okay. And that can be revealed in the lungs just by looking at them microscopically. That can happen. The other kind of thing that he makes note of, and this is significant, is he couldn't examine the intact stomach. Well, it's because the stomach's been dissected out. You take a pair of scissors, you run right down the esophagus. Okay. You go into the vault of the stomach, you open it up. But before you do that, when you've removed it, you tie it off on both ends, you clip it, tie it off, clip it, take it out, the stomach. The contents are retained. And that's important here, right? So when you retain that gastric content, Dave, we can first off appreciate if there's any kind of matter in the stomach that he would have ingested. That gives us an idea of when he last ate. Now, what else can we find? Are there particulate bits of medicine, like pills, anything in his system? Does it smell of alcohol? I know folks out there think that if you've ever been around a friend that was drunk the night before, they smell like they're still drunk during the day. Take that sickly sweet odor that you smell kind of coming off of somebody's body, go to an autopsy with somebody that has imbibed, open up their abdomen, open up their stomach. It's times 10 of what you smell coming off of somebody. It's this sickly sweet aroma, and it just kind of slaps you in the face. So you take a big vial and you literally do a dip out of the stomach. You retain it, and that is sent off for toxicology. It's not merely blood and urine. It's actually gastric content too, and that can tell the tape. There's another thing that you look for in the stomach in a case similar to this, because we're talking about drowning. Was there water in his stomach? So as he is on this island, and we don't know what happened when he was abandoned there or left behind, for whatever reason, all right? For whatever reason, I have no idea. You want to see if there is seawater in his stomach, not just in his airway, not just in his lungs. The other piece to this, and I know that this is, I want folks to understand this truly. One of the other things that we'd look at is inner ear. because with drowning, you actually have water in the inner ear, and that requires a dissection within the skull where you're going to go into the auditory canal and you're going to take a look in there. If there's water in there, there's a chance that this could be a drowning event, okay? Because water intrudes into this area. You can find it in the sinuses sometimes too. The other thing that I'm really fascinated by, and Dr. Mitchell does not say anything about this, as he shouldn't, because he has no knowledge, but going back to Mississippi, I want to know if diatome testing was done. And diatoms are these little bits of algae that are, I hope that everybody will look this up and take a look at it online. There is diatom, and they're these, they're algae, but they have these kind of really neat geometric forms to them, and you can actually see them. Those are unique to both freshwater and saltwater, and different species exist within each. So if you're trying, there have been cases out there where people were drowned in fresh water and then they were taken and dumped in the ocean, but they've got diatoms that are freshwater related. Okay. So I hope that they didn't miss, to put it in downhill skiing terms, I hope they didn't miss that gate. Yeah. As they're going through everything, I hope the people in Mississippi were that they're going to be doing diatome testing.
Back up to the inner ear canal. Did Dr. Mitchell observe, examine?
He didn't allude to it. I didn't see that, and I literally have the report in front of me. He talks about the layered dissection, the posterior. He states that there's no skull fractures. Let me just make sure in real time here, guys, as we're...
Well, Joe, there is something that, has been made a lot of, and it's the back of the head, that people who don't do this for a living, and I am one of those, examining bodies and looking at the back of the head saying, that we've got something going on back there, what could have caused this? Is there an innocent explanation for an injury or a bruise or what have you to the back of the head where this has been laid out? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. And let's just qualify it as an anomaly right now because, well, Dr. Mitchell is not necessarily calling it, he's not calling it an injury. He's merely saying it's an area of discoloration, which he cannot assess because of the level of decomposition, but he makes note of it, draws it. And even, at his strata, this is something so significant for him that he wants to enter this into the record, right? So he's actually, he sees the importance of it, as well he should. That's what he does, dude.
But because of decomposition, he cannot come out and say this was caused by bone.
No, and not in the definitive sense. Here's another problem that I think is, people talk about these other missing organs, right? Or, the stomach. And you know what he couldn't assess? He can't assess the brain. And as you know, if you've got a head strike, that's problematic, brother. Because let's just say that if somebody fell back and hit their head, if they're struck by an object, stomped on, whatever the case might be, it is to your advantage to be able to see the brain and examine it. He doesn't state this in his report. And I'm just wondering, because this does happen, I'm wondering if the brain came with the body, or was it, if it did come with the body, the status of it would have been dissected out, or did state medical examiner in Mississippi retain it?
So ultimately, what we're dealing with here is certain aspects of Nolan's body could not be examined.
Yes.
They've been examined hopefully by the ME for the state of Mississippi.
Yes.
And so once we get that report, once that report is made public, and we don't know when that could be, but when it happens, we can compare and contrast the two reports and maybe be able to determine something more than what Dr. Mitchell was able to come up with by missing out on certain aspects of what he would have normally had he been doing the only autopsy.
Yeah, precisely. And again, we're in kind of a wait and see hold mode, and I know people hate to hear that.
Right.
But, you know, I'll put it to you this way. The medical legal community, probably out of every investigative agency out there, or type of investigative organization, they don't care about your timeline. These are scientists that you're talking about. So they're waiting on a myriad of things. You know, the old saying, we're pending toxicology. This case is literally pending toxicology right now. To say that Brother Dave and I are going to keep our eyes on this case would be an understatement. If there are any developments in this case, we will hop on, give an update, whatever the case might be, because this has captured the attention of our country. And all we want is the truth. At the end of the day, that's really all you should expect to have, is the truth. I know Nolan's parents want the truth. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bag.